Welcome. This is our kickoff event for the One Book, One New Orleans. So I will just welcome you to the library and welcome you also on behalf of the Friends of the UNO Library. They are co-sponsoring the drinks tonight. So there's a few of them in the room. Please give them a thank you for that effort. And,
thank you.
We are always looking for new members to join us. So if you would like to, you can go to the library's website and click on Friends in the footer and find an application and membership form. So I will now hand it off to Abram. Megan, sorry.
Megan Holt.
Do I need this mic?
No.
Can y'all hear me in the back of the cheap seats? All right, cool. All right, welcome everyone. I am Megan Holt. I'm the Executive Director of One Book, One New Orleans. For those of you who don't know what One Book, One New Orleans is, I see a lot of new faces and I'm so thrilled right now. First of all, thank you all for coming out on Thursday night. A Thursday night, a month after we'd initially planned to have this event. It's amazing that it all happened and that you're all here. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So we'll give you the 5-minute or less spiel on what One Book, One New Orleans is. One Book, One New Orleans selects one book every year. We encourage the city to read the same book at the same time with the idea that we will grow stronger as a community through a shared reading experience. But when we do this, we have to recognize that approximately 1 in 4 adults in our city struggles with literacy and access to books. So if we are going to be One Book, One New Orleans, we have to reach those 1 in 4. So how do we do that? We develop a curriculum around the one book every year, and we give hundreds of copies of the one book and the accompanying curriculum free of charge to adult education programs. So the one book that we select is being used citywide to teach adults to read. We also get that book into the ears of the blind and print handicapped through a partnership with WRVH Reading Radio. They record and broadcast that book cover to cover. We get the book into the hands of incarcerated folks through partnerships with the Orleans Parish Jail, Louisiana Books to Prisoners, and also the Travis Hill School. So the book is also being used to teach incarcerated juveniles. We get the book into the New Orleans Public Library. Every branch gets a few copies so that if you can't afford the book, you can go to your library and get it for free. We'll also sometimes just drive around the city and drop them into the little free libraries. So we're breaking down barriers that would keep that 1 in 4 from accessing the book. And then we have a series of events like this, free, family-friendly, open to the public. There's always food in different neighborhoods around the city, so that if your barrier to an event like this is transportation, we're coming to your neighborhood at least once. So breaking down barriers to books and bringing everyone together around reading is the name of the game. And as we all know, the one book this year is Black Creole Chronicles by Lisa Saloy. Before she comes up, I have some thank yous and shout outs. First one's already been done, but I'm going to do it again. Thank you to Friends of the Earl K Library for sponsoring the drinks tonight. We so appreciate your partnership. If you're eating wings or pasta, those were donated by Peewee's Crabcaks. Thank you, Peewee's Crabcakes. All the folks who showed up here to volunteer tonight, Frida, Jefferson, Liz, Latoya, Robin, thank you guys so much. If you're not in this room, but you're on YouTube watching this video, it's because of our friends over here at Litwire. Thank you, Litwire New Orleans. Shout out to some board members, Malik, Latoya, and Liz. Thank y'all for being here and for your service on the board. Shout out to the UNO Dean, Samuel Gladden. He's the Dean of Liberal Arts, Education, and Human Development. He's working with us on furthering the partnership between UNO and One Book, One New Orleans. Stay tuned. And the biggest thanks is to the University of New Orleans Press, who not only helped bring this event to life, but who brought this book to life. They published Black Creole Chronicles by Lisa Saloy. Without them, none of this happens. They're over here. You can get a copy of the book if you'd like. And with that, I will turn it over to Abram Himmelstein, Editor-in-Chief of the University of New Orleans Press.
It's wonderful to be here tonight. I'm going to keep it very short. I want to leave room for Chelsea Shannon, our editor, who got to work with this book, to talk a little bit about the behind the scenes. I do want to just appreciate Mona Lisa, who I've known now for 20 years. When I was first getting into publishing at the Neighborhood Story Project, Mona Lisa came and we were working with students from John McDonough, and Mona Lisa came and worked with them and shared her experience and also her approach to writing, which was amazing. So this book came into being because when Mona Lisa was nominated to be the Poet Laureate for the state of Louisiana, which is a term she just finished, she said in the paper, "I have a new collection and I'm looking for a publisher." And I felt as though she was speaking directly to me. So I was like, "Can we talk today?" And so the book has come from that experience. I didn't get to do a lot with the book. I wanted to acknowledge G.K. Darby, Alex DeMeth, Emily Dalrymple, Laura DeFazio, and the person I'm about to bring up here, who's the editor and the person who really worked with Mona Lisa to make this collection the vibrant joy that it is. Please come up and tell us about it, Chelsea Shannon.
I'll use the mic. Does that sound good? Yeah. Okay. I am so happy to introduce Mona Lisa Saloy formally. Dr. Mona Lisa Saloy is the Conrad N. Hilton Endowed Professor of English at Dillard University, and she is a poet, folklorist, and scholar whose expertise is grounded in New Orleans and in Black Creole culture. She's written on the significance of the Black beat poets, on the African American toasting tradition, and on keeping Creole after the devastation of Hurricane Katrina. In addition to numerous poems and articles, she published 2 poetry collections prior to the one we're here to celebrate tonight, Second Line Home and Red Beans and Rice Yours, which won the T.S. Eliot Prize and the Penn Oakland Josephine Miles Award. In 2021, Dr. Saloy was named Poet Laureate of Louisiana, an honor for the state as much as for the poet. On this occasion, Governor John Bell Edwards remarked that Dr. Saloy beautifully captures the culture and essence of Louisiana in her mesmerizing poetry. She understands the importance of using art to preserve our stories and pass them down for generations. Unflinching and elastic in its scope, the work ranges from the gravity of traumas and triumphs to the importance of pleasure and play as everyday expressions of Creole culture, including childhood sidewalk songs, jump rope rhymes, and clap hand games, along with music, cuisine, parading, and other social traditions. My work as an author is the rent that I pay for the blessing of being a Black Creole, she has said. She weaves art from her hometown and ancestral roots with a keen and loving sense of attunement. In the words of poet Nikki Finney, Mona Lisa Saloy is a poet whose words give us shelter, a poet who has feeding us always on her mind. Keep your starched white dinner napkins for another kind of meal and for guests that eat in a hurry. Bring your hunger for family that still kisses each other at the open door, and memory that knows the storm will end and the sun will rise again. Dr. Saloy's latest release, Black Creole Chronicles, is an inviting multi-tonal collection that attests to the poet's now. From reflections on the contemporary issues of COVID-19, gun violence, and Black Lives Matter activism, to the timelessness of Black Louisiana culture, regional history as experienced by neighbors, relatives, and community figures, and romance. Pulitzer Prize winner Jericho Brown has said that what Saloy manages here with the Black vernacular of South Louisiana and New Orleans in particular is proof that poetry must indeed always rise to the level of folklore. a mythology that respects the folk who know and live the lore. I am so happy I read this book. And I am so happy I got to edit this book. In my role at the University of New Orleans Press, I am fortunate to have worked with Mona Lisa on this robust and moving collection, and to have gotten a sense of her generous, dauntless, ebullient spirit through that work. Hers is a presence that truly sparkles with graciousness, vitality, and wit, and I thank her for trusting me and the press as collaborators in her art. Whether she is keynoting, penning a fresh poem, or working to ensure that her students are aware of every opportunity available to them, Dr. Saloy's is an ethic of creativity that is never disconnected from the collective. The press is so proud that Black Creole Chronicles will be the focus of a whole year of programming and conversation through One Book, One New Orleans Championship, and that Mona Lisa's words will be suffused into the sounds, vibes, and talk of our city in 2024 and beyond. And without further ado, Mona Lisa Saloy.
Thank you so much, Chelsea, for that generous introduction. This woman is an editor bar none. I'm a writer and a scholar, and I've been doing this a long time, but let me tell you, you need fresh eyes. Just an interesting side note, whenever my first book was rejected 25 times, and that's not uncommon in publishing, but my first readers are my family. I have my sister, my cousin, and my cousin's best friend, who's also my dear friend. And they will tell me if it's crap. They also help me pick the titles. But beyond that, they're very accepting. But Chelsea helped me do some fine tuning that even I overlooked. So she got it. She got me. So thank you so much. Her sensibility, her skill, and her generous nature was just, and her expertise, just bar none. So thank you. And just give Chelsea a hand. And as Abram expressed, here I was going all over the state, so honored to be the Poet Laureate of Louisiana, and going all over, and people kept saying, well, who are these Creoles? What's the deal? And I was reading from my other books, and they said, but I want to know more, I want to understand. And you will hear that in the work, but for those of you who may be confused, and the book is dedicated to my people everywhere, united by culture, separated by seas, S-E-A-S. And that's because Creole, its etymology or earliest term by the Portuguese, was to define those descendants of mixed enslaved Africans born in the New World. So whether Canadians or Americans or Caribbean or South Americans, we are so much more alike than we are different. And Creole is a language, it is a cuisine, it is a style, it is a heritage, it is a series of traditions in all those places. But again, we're more alike than we are different. It's very interesting. Although, because here in New Orleans more Africans were sold than any other place in the country, we kept so much of our Africanness, our foodways, our polyrhythms, just so much. The beating, just so much of that is ours. So I'm grateful to all of that. So because it's Black History Month, happy Black History Month, I am going to read from the first section largely. It's called Poetic Justice or Just Us. And I'll begin at the beginning. From Bondage to Freedom. Preamble. America, America, rising king of the new world, fueled and plagued by transatlantic-wide enslaving of blacks, great Bantu from Sierra Leone to South Africa, Sudanese from the continent's center, Atlantic to the belly of the Nile, melodic Negroes, black and brown, Egypt's allies, Great Lake tribes, pygmies and Hottentots, Giant Kikuyu warriors, a pinch of Berber, salt with Arab blood, peppered in the West Indies with gods and songs, seasoned for 2.5 centuries, crossed with French, Spanish, Dutch, Portuguese, color Christian, spiced with East Indian. America, America, new world of child's greed, deaf to black blues wails, blind to the prison she made, dumb to a morality empty as a new glass. America's conscience slept. The Indians fought and died, Negroes worked and multiplied. It was a ragged world. America clothed in cotton, Negroes massed to millions, like the cotton bales, married to steam and water. Black labor spun a new America, woven off black backs with pyramids in their pupils, transplanted black bouillon, built cities in commerce, carried paradox in providence, plantations in profit, Confederate hate, the great white South canopy of heaven, whose covenant the Negro's brick, our property, our profit, our footstool, our promise, the black guilt on our streets. Cotton kingdom, few Negroes free. Some fugitives, thieves, vagabonds, most were trapped people. No family defenses, no free will. A conscience chained like a child in the womb, chattel, real estate like a chair, a dog, or a mule. So in the bed America laid, two sides, masters and enslaved Africans, ignoring first peoples, free labor for profit, black and white, spiced with red indigenous, a new American South, an armed and commissioned camp to stamp out slave revolts. Gabriel in 1800, 1811 here, Vesey in 1822, Nat Turner 1831, the crew of the Amistad in 1837, black Creoles again in 1841. Safety value of slaves, savior of the spirit, determined dreams, warmed in geography, spelled on each heart, running away to freedom. Saved in song and story, a gift of spirit and love, sandwiched between right and wrong. America, the veil over truth. Slavery, it's an unholy license. Its black code, a sham of law. America, bodyguard to tyranny, mocking liberty. Cloaked in a hollow religious parade, and in the middle the Negro, savior and enemy of the new nation, doomed to labor in those days, spinning cotton, rice, sugar, indigo into gold. Shackled warriors witnessed the devil in Dixie and big time. My Creole Chronicle. Black New Orleans for truth. Come Mondays, some will never see us. Some will never understand. Only some will get us. Only some will dig our sound, our joy, our style, our hip reverb, our lingo, our tales. Tall and squalid, old as the world. Will they see who or what she is or he is or they are? Our crime was being black. Our salvation faith, an African ancestry replete with exuberant arts, adaptable like lizards. We weren't supposed to survive whole. Black Creoles say, now you got the picture with the right pair of drawers on. Creolesboro, guardians of the Creole crew. Creoles can't stay calm doing nothing. We make guitar or piano solos, or wail one potato, two potato at play, or make salad with eggs to kiss your papa. Don't much bother folks who wake up to sweet smells of cane syrup laced on garlic pie. That's pan-fried shortening bread. Well, who makes the best oyster stew? Who shucks them best fast? We be doing. We be doing us. But we don't mind waiting to see the Lord. In the meantime, we tell our kids there's ancestors in your veins. We, called to the battlefield of life, turn stumbling blocks to skipping stones. Slip, slap, smile, or frown. Stories turn our necks around. Hold someone's good in mind. Be safest in somebody's prayers. Now that's between you and me and the gatepost. Now, that's between you and me and the gatepost, you heard me? 7th Ward Daily Fare of Black Creole Talk. In the Crescent City, we live on the inside of good luck, the right side of blessings. Past front steps and porches, we're a giving thanks and praying town. Contrary to popular opinion, there's more churches than bars. Annually, we count the storms missing us, laugh and thank you, Lord, for another safe season. And in the middle of smiles, we see each other, wish y'all well, until we chew the fat on the gallery again. Hey, he looks like Uncle Brother. No, he look like Jesse Hill. Who that? Mr. Oopu Papa Do himself. Oh, they did that dude bad. Buried in Hope Cemetery. What? Potter's Field. No lie, that's got poop, bad luck. Uh-oh, got a step. Need to find a stump to fit and rest my rump. Chew some pecans later. Amen. Oh, I want to tell you about Oopu-Doo. You know they call me the most. Oopu-Doo. You know they call me the most. And I won't stop trying till I create a disturbance in your mind. That's Jesse Hill. This one is in two parts. It's called What We Know Now That Was Not Taught in School. 1. Transatlantic slave trade began in the 1400s when Portugal and other European kingdoms expanded overseas to Africa. Portuguese kidnapped peoples from the West African coast took those enslaved Africans on a journey between Africa and the Americas called the Middle Passage. Could take 4 to 6 weeks. The average lasted 2 or 3 months. Such storms still reign on the Atlantic. The White Lion, English privateer ship, operated a Dutch letter of marque, brought Africans to the English colony, Virginia, 1619, a year before the Mayflower's arrival in New England. It was late August when 20 to 30 enslaved Africans landed at Port Comfort, today's Fort Monroe in Hampton, Virginia. Aboard that English privateer ship White Lion, these Africans, commodities, traded in exchange for supplies. Some 1.8 million perished in the Middle Passage. The last U.S. slave ship, the Clotilda of Africans to America, landed 1860 at the bottom of the Mobile River in Alabama, found in 2019. American direct importation of enslaved Africans legally ended in 1808, 1 year after the British. On the mighty Mississippi, New Orleans, the Crescent City, sold more enslaved Africans than any American city. Enslaved Africans built European wealth. There was no middle class prior to African enslavement. Enslaved Africans built the wealth of America. They and descendants of mixed enslaved Africans, the Portuguese called Creoles, blacks who gave America blues, Negro spirituals grown into gospel music, such sacred and secular music styles blended into jazz, fused into soul or rhythm and blues into rock and roll, into rock, into rap, into pop, still evolving. Out of a cruel and forced migration of stolen people, enslaved Africans were taken back to Europe, or the triangle slave trade it's called. Estimates of 36,000 ships took over 5 million Africans to the New World. Then Africans returned to Europe with the white gold, sugar, coffee, tobacco, plus rice. Long grain rice really is Uncle Ben's. From Senegal, the Gambia. The shotgun house, West African architecture, where families lived during planting or harvest time. Imported to the New World, a must in hot, humid southern air. Southern air, a mainstay. More gifts came. Soul food is now hot cuisine. Plantation homes stand still by labor of Africans from the Congo who knew what woods did not rot. Celebrated ironwork of Europe, New Orleans, the refining of iron smelting of the Yoruba. Their handiwork remains art through the ages, from the ancient Akan kingdom. And Dinkra symbols adorn French Quarter balconies, gates. Each symbol a proverb, a story, a legacy, such as Sankofa, a bird looks back to go forward. Part 2. Now, my papa was born enslaved in Alabama, Sumter, Nowell County. Walked to New Orleans to be free. Heard that all my life. Lived to 110. Me, just a new tween. He, the oldest. Me and 2 cousins, Larry, 6 months older, and Dwight, 6 months younger. Left in his care all our early days. Well, Papa held court on the front porch of our shotgun double. And folks came from far just to listen. What a storyteller, a preacher, who co-founded Mount Zion Baptist Church on North Robertson Street, which drowned and did not return from post-Katrina flooding, where his picture hung for decades. I thought Papa just told good lies. A good jokester preacher dude. But he lived so long, knew what many folks didn't. In college, studying African literature, when I learned Papa's stories were West African tales, handed down by word of mouth, face to face, generation to generation, folklore. Papa knew generations of families and could tell relatives what happened to Buddy and his gang, or Hawkeye and his girls. He signed his name with an X half a century before Brother Malcolm, which is how the Army knew he was too old to join World War I. Though well-built, still strapping and strong for someone illiterate, he just knew too much. Official Army records shows he had to be over 50 and not 30, so they said no. Already a brickmaker, bricklayer, cement finisher, skills he taught his sons who became craftsmen, laying sidewalks, courtyards, churches, from the Boucare, Tremé, the 6th through the 7th wards, Corpus Christi Church, Epiphany School and Church, St. Raymond. Now, living through Jim Crow teaches daily lessons of humility and indignity, overt cruelty unchecked, lynchings, folks disappeared, later found in pieces, like the dragging death murder of James Byrd Jr. in Jasper, Texas, or the murders of Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor, forever George Floyd, to the more microaggressions, some like black folks accused of passing for white, a joke, blackjack, Blasian, some call, oh, you're only half the N-word. Our days and tales celebrate the joy we make together. There's snatches of life during Jim Crow, the devastation sustained cruelty causes. Well, decreases in Black American numbers since 1790, from being over 19.3% to less than 12% now. Blacks still jailed quickly for less than whites and remain jailed or die there. We're not half, but multi-human, beautifully black, and a lot more fun fanning cultures to live well. Only justice is still just us, America, but we are more and more and blossoming.
Yes.
When I began as a young writer, it was right after the Black Arts Movement, which we later called it as a more docile term. And so these 2 poems honor that time, because I literally wrote to remember after losing my memory in a car accident. I'd been married 6 months. I thought we went on a honeymoon, but we went to meet the son I didn't know my husband had. And on the way back, I didn't have a license, and he didn't want to stop returning to Seattle. And he made me drive. I didn't know how to drive. And the car skidded on black ice in Oregon and rolled over 3 times and fell 30 feet down an embankment to the next interstate. So I'm a walking miracle for the
Yeah.
So God is good. But I literally lost my memory for 2 years. And the doctors in Oregon told me to write things down. So I filled the little spiral notebooks. They were 10 cents a piece. Stacks I had on them. And that's how I started, writing to remember. And then I met young black writers at the university where we lived. We lived in student housing, because actually at that time I was working, my husband went to school. And young writers next door at the cafe were performing the works of Alice Walker and Sonia Sanchez and then Leroy Jones, and who became Amiri Baraka, and Nikki Giovanni. And so I didn't know that there was a black literature, because in high school, all we read was Dead White Men. And they were good. I love me some Milton, but I didn't know there was a literature. And I always, even though I was writing to remember, I began to write back to those great writers, because when Nikki Giovanni and Nikki Rosa says, and she talks about being poor in Chicago, all the while we were quite happy. I said, yes. So I've always been trying to capture that paradise we had here. And so, but these two are a part of the band, the Black Arts Movement. So this is called Coming of Age. Last of the Jim Crow generation, Jim Crow named from a minstrel show, white man in blackface show called Jim Crow, into black codes, laws after the Civil War, after so-called emancipation, how whites react to newfound Negro rights, legal separation of races. We planned attacks with Homer Plessy, New Orleans civil rights versus Ferguson, a push to integrate public transportation, then elect some blacks to Congress. Public education for all, a first. The Ku Klux Klan rose with the first national blockbuster film, racist D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation. Then people's protests, the bloody summer of 1919. The NAACP and the Urban League formed and fight. Later, Emmett Till and Scottsboro boys fuel our rage. Brown versus the Board of Education kindles hope. A child in the separate Jim Crow 1950s, colored only restrooms, restaurants, leftovers turned soul food cuisine, great colored cafes, juke joints back of town, jazz blossomed, bound by colored only water fountains. Get groceries at the rear or side window, couldn't sit at public counters. No colored electricians, plumbers, truck drivers, all illegal. Some, like my Danny, passed for white to survive. Some to infiltrate enemy plans, backyard parties, suppers, second lines. We passed a good time together anyway. Us, culturally covered, cozy and colored. Fueled by World Black Consciousness Movement, David Walker's roots, Marcus Garvey legacies, alongside the rise of machines. Folks fed by Marxist critiques of capitalism, abuses of labor, finally World War II blacks in the Army, Navy, Marines, Air Forces, saving peace. Jim Crow still ugly once home. Colonial invasions continued from the 1949 Chinese Revolution to the 1959 Cuban Revolution. More international black intellectuals, Aimé Césaire, Frantz Fanon, Martinique, Nicolas Guillen, Cuba, Nelson Mandela, South Africa, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Kenya. A teen of the 1960s, Civil Rights Act passed in 1963, not enforced until the 70s. Larry Neal and Leroy Jones made Blackfire, the anthology. Our Christian names flew into African tongues. Abina, God bless you, girl born on Tuesday. Kofi, boy born on Friday. 1961, Amiri Baraka arrested at the United Nations, protesting the murder of Patrice Lumumba of the Congo. Independence movements in Congo, Egypt, Ghana, Nigeria, Guinea. SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Detroit Red blasted into Malcolm X. Stoked resistance, quote, by any means necessary. Then firebombed, touched by God into Minister El Haj Malik El Shabazz, but killed February 21st, 1965. Then Stokely Carmichael re-sloganizes Black Power, 1966, reviving Garvey. But we divorce colored. Negroes' eyes to the ground cower. For African dashiki wearing, gospel singing, lift every voice and sing. Folks, flaming black to brown to yellow, all black. Our great past unveiled, from Akan and Yoruba kingdoms and proverbs to banneker designs of the United States capital city in Washington, D.C., always blazing trails, always inventing, from the ironing board to traffic lights to the first working computer. Blood plasma, thank you, Dr. Charles Drew. Jazz bop to a love supreme, or so what, Miles Blue. Rhythm and blues wail, oh, Ray Charles Sunshine. Soul birth, rock and roll to rock, and whites would never be the same. Our poetic voices explode like fireworks. I, Bambara, Amiri Baraka, Brooks, Evans, Haki, Spellman, Giovanni, Henderson, Kaufman, Walker, Young, Reed, Redmond, Carolyn M. Rogers. Black journals pop up times 20. We keep our eyes on the prize, oh Lord, keep our eyes on the prize, oh Lord. And this is sort of the second part. It's called Band and Me, the Black Arts Movement. Like the Harlem Renaissance, the beat movement, the term Black Arts Movement is something we say in hindsight, a label to honor and dignify a legacy we recognize as significant in many lives and affecting generations. At the time, post-Brown versus Board of Education in Topeka, Kansas, the painful integration of public schools, and the aching protests and sit-ins of the heinous Jim Crow era, we lost great heroes and heroines: Malcolm X, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy, and Fannie Lou Hamer said it best that she was sick and tired of being sick and tired. She articulated what we all felt, that our ancestors lived in the indigo and cotton fields of the South, in the subways and street corners of the cold North, locked out, looked down upon, often hated, and few outside of us really cared. Thank God some did. Something wonderful happened. The era of realizing the continuous push for civil rights was raging. But most importantly, we, once Negroes, then colored people, became black and beautiful. It was somewhere between the Black Panther movement calling us to arms to defend ourselves by any means necessary, and the Black Muslims practicing cooperative economics. Amid our newfound consciousness that traditional church was hypocritical, too historically often. Later came the birth of Kwanzaa to offset our newly found ability to promote buying black. Then Don L. Lee became Hakeem Matabuti and told niggas that to be black is to be very hot. Leroy Jones called us out on an SOS, calling all black people, and became Imamu Amiri Baraka. Nikki Giovanni reminded us that even though most of us grew up poor, a sociological term, that all the while we were quite happy. Especially since we had no idea just what we were missing, since there was so much we were not allowed to do, say, experience. What do we do, say? And experience was great cooking made from whatever white folks didn't want, later called soul food, and now the stuff of massive cookbooks, cooking shows, and chefs, the hottest cuisine in the world. Well, we sang our hearts out in church, praising the Lord in gospel riffs born in the sorrow songs and middle passage woes, added to the blues of work songs and chain gangs. These gems became gospel music that toured the world, raising money for HBCUs, or historically black colleges and universities. We cooked up something new between the blues-bearing, soulful strivings of black angst, married to European notation, making jazz America's original classical music. Then soul music broke loose into funk, then into rock and roll, later disco, until those street corner heroic narratives of Shine and the Signifying Monkey left the sidewalk from toasting into another musical phenomena and blossomed into rap full scale. Yeah, we made more than lemonade. Through it all, our poets and lyricists from Langston Hughes to Curtis Mayfield gave us hope to move on up.
You all right? Yeah.
Okay. All right, I was honored to be interviewed on this matter, Lincoln Beach. And you never know when they do that, whether they're gonna use you or anything. But this is my poem, Lincoln Beach, and I think it explains itself. My sister took us little ones to Lincoln Beach, the Negro Beach, on Lake Pontchartrain's shore of 3,000 mini-me's laughing. Every city had one then. Us, catching the Galvez and the Franklin Avenue bus next, the Little Woods bus, connecting us to Haynes Boulevard at Lincoln Beach. Seemed like we went to another parish. No car. Daddy said buses work fine. Walking is good for the soul. And he didn't want the debt or to become our chauffeur. Instead of having family over on Sundays for backyard get-togethers, cracking oyster shells, the po' boys on French bread from Dixiana Bakery, or boiling crawfish till ruby red, cayenne pepper hot like the sun beaming blinding suns. On the way to and home from Lincoln Beach, we sang Smokey Robinson or Backwater Blues. We slept, kissed the bus windows, ducked white folks' stares, squeezed into seats in the back during Jim Crow. We packed lunches, a few clarines, Creole homemade candies for treats. We walked my first sand on the man-made beach, swam in the big pool, me no bigger than a kitchen table, jackknifed off the high dive. Then we fell asleep like sinking stones once home. Lincoln Beach, our beach, now decayed and deserted like old Jim Crow laws, but standing barely, crippled since closed. Then we took our cash to Pontchartrain Beach, the white beach park. Also gone now a technology center just off the university. The black side of the road still not as polished as the other side, near the marina lined with yachts. Wouldn't notice if it weren't so. Now, some of our youth kill each other wholesale for sport. Some fake fantasy or dead rappers dream of guns and glory, and they take no peace in bus rides. Yeah. Only lust for what they don't own, want, or have. Only a handout gimme. God help us, and may peace pour plenty. And then there's the neighborhood. There's so much brilliance. A lot of the folk sayings that I have in my work, I get right out of people's mouths on the street. We pass in front of the door or hang out on the corner. And this is called Resurrection Sunday Treetop Visits. Resurrection Sunday, after the gospel mass at Dee's house in the neighborhood, the seventh ward. No party, just cousins, thankful for good worship, healthy hands to bake redfish, sweet potatoes, tossed green salad graced with purple onions, sliced peppers, sauteed broccoli, cauliflower, corn sliced to tender. When the doorbell brought a tall, chocolate, bent-over dude carrying a well-used duffel across his body, water bottle sticking out. Oh, he said, he remembers me. Not really, but happy Easter. His gray jeans saw better days. His head capped in a bent knit, mostly black with red-green stripes, small but vivid. D home? Yes. Yous remember me? Treetop? You's the cousin poet. I holler, y'all is Treetop. Now standing above 6 feet, Treetop's smile on a milk chocolate face framed by flying curly dreadlocks most days. His frown. D shouts, tell him to come in. Tree eases into the kitchen, family central, slouches on a stool. Sorry to come like this, sudden like. Mama's gone now. Was forced out the house and need to get tight for Salvation Army. Charge $10 a night now. And no day's work this week. D shop, $10 a night, that's rent. Tree said if he claimed crazy, he could get free vouchers, but he ain't crazy. And some things a man just can't do. His mama didn't raise him to tell that kind of lie for $10. Now looking into his pride of manhood, his handsome chocolate shines, though toothless. He was one of Mush's men. Mush, our Dee's father-in-law, our family crooner, jazz bass voice. When autumn leaves start to fall, his fresh greens from ground he dug, collards to heal the earth, Creole tomatoes for flavor, melito in season, treetop his partner, caregiver for his mom across the street, end of day sharing, heavy tree removal, or barbecuing on summer days, gumbo on cold days, sharing a brewski to jazz, blues, gospel, rhythm, and blues every day. Occasional old school movies in the backyard. Tree like Mush told me to keep my old Toyota truck. Just take care of it. We danced roots, rock, reggae to Marley reggae made every Mush birthday party, crawfish boil, spring Sunday suppers in the backyard. We were together. We were safe. Hugs by Mush and his buddies who helped change a tire, oil, or send us to the right mechanic if they couldn't fix it. Neighborhood warriors all. Well, this Resurrection Sunday, Treetop stopped by, checked in, left with palms warmed by buckets of food, love, and dollars favor. Our eyes leaked together. He would not take a ride, wanted to walk to the bus stop, his head higher, his walk lighter, holding our gifts in his heart. I had the honor of caring for my father the last decade and a half of his life. I lost my mom as a teenager, and so when you're a kid, you love your parents, but you don't really know them. So as an adult, it was a great honor for me to get to know my father, really, as a person, and to learn the stories that I didn't understand, and to figure out what happened to people. So it was tough. I didn't know what I was getting into, and this is the story about that. Years ago, 2 weeks before Katrina. It was hotter and more humid than now, 1 week before Katrina hit. The ink was not dry yet on my PhD. My cousins, Big D and Con, plus more family, gave me a knockdown, dance-up backyard party. Cousins and colleagues came from afar. Elder neighbors who loved me through the hardest days of research and elder care of my daddy, through the crack epidemic that left Daddy drooling from the putrid red beans, a layer of moldy slime swimming across the top of the big black iron pot I found on the filthy rodent-infested kitchen with only a piece of roof dangling, roaches flying from nest to nest like birds. My family remembered that crackheads stole everything not nailed down. Didn't leave Daddy a pair of shoes. I had to draw around his feet on cardboard for sizing. The shoe store clerk wanted security to remove me until I stood my ground and left with a tan pair of huaraches and slippers for Daddy. Doctors thought him deaf and deteriorated from dementia, but he just closed his ears and leaking eyes to the disappointment he saw in his stepkids and the transient men who took over his home. His life with no hot running water, a broken toilet, the weeds growing through the bathroom floor from the dirt ground, 4 feet below the clawfoot iron tub leaning through the broken floorboards rotten from neglect. Took me 2 years in and out of court to get rid of those niggas. It was the filth and poor nutrition on top of it that diminished this World War II Army sergeant, master carpenter, into a man who babbled, slobbered, who forgot who he knew, my daddy, who used to dance with my mother and shuck oysters at our backyard parties growing up, had no idea what I walked into. Just rolled his 300-pound body in sheets to clean him and change bed linens until the shower was installed. His first shower since his Army days, he sang. He was happy again, came back to himself fully for years, returning to stand guard on the front porch and greet family and neighbors and what we call dope hopping, talking stuff about passersby. Even his doctors were shocked, but we all knew it was only God and a lot of prayers. my new college colleagues, friends, and professors now friends came and ate Buster's Florines and Chef Drew's Bananas Foster bread pudding with us, danced the second line with us on Jewel Street and 8 Turo Avenue, laughing faces in tune to Levert's I'm much on Casanova. Me and Romeo ain't never been friends. Can't you see how much I really love you? Gonna say it to you time and time again. Oh, Casanova, they thought my family was celebrating my degree. My cousin Larry said this backyard bash took him back to our old parties, that everybody came for me, not for a wedding or a funeral. Bibi, nobody got married and nobody died, Larry shouted. They came for me, for watching me love Daddy back to health, back to himself, back to our family. And yes, the PhD of Family First, bringing us all together the way we were all raised. Only God, we said, only God. Cicadas sang through the evening, serenading the nights until only days later, Hurricane Katrina fanned across the Gulf. This was our family's last time all together, with longtime elders, Mush, our jazz crooner, the fishnet-making Leons, and great gumbo Cerise no longer here. I told my family maybe I'll write a novel about those hard days of waking up to a strawberry as a crackhead whore, pre-earing over my African beads on my dresser, and Daddy with no shoes, but I'll change the names to protect the guilty. Well, it was hotter and more humid years ago, the last time our family was all together, when nobody died and no one got married. I ain't much on Casanova. Me and Romeo ain't never been friends. Can't you see how much I really love you? Gonna say it to you time and time again. Oh, Casanova. I'm happy to say that I'll be taking my students on a field trip to the Whitney Plantation Museum. And I'm teaching a black lit course, but I'm also taking some freshmen. And it's an important experience. It's the only plantation museum currently that tells the story of enslavement from the enslaved point of view. So it is unique in that respect. And just yesterday, 2 black women, both PhDs, who are part of the Descendants Project, bought a plantation. And they have partnered with the owner of the Whitney, and they're going to turn that into a museum as well.
All right. Yeah.
So this is my homage to the Whitney in one of my many field trips at the Whitney Plantation Museum. At the Whitney, the Field of Angels tells all. Woodrow Nash, artist of Akron, Ohio, creates 71 life-size kids from photos, replicas of enslaved kids who lived there. Sweet faces with no eyes, to symbolize the hopelessness of being enslaved. My souvenir pendant tethers a little boy, John McDonald of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. No, sir, balls, I can't read and write. When I was brung up, if my balls catch me with a pencil and paper was 25 lashes. Federal Writers Project narratives. Here is their wall of honor. The Indigo Nation, generations enslaved, Musa, Arabic for Moses. Mandingo Nation, born circa 1778, no one knows for sure when. From a warrior nation, Quakow, born on Wednesday. Mina Nation, born circa 1769, no one knows for sure when. Then men called bucks, their job, make babies, make more slaves. Enslaved work begins by 10. Death comes in 10 years for many. No incentive to keep alive the slaves, so-called renewable resource. 1452, Pope Nicholas V sanctions enslavement. Pope Nicholas V given 250 slaves as a gift. The papal bull decrees dark people of the world savages to be conquered, giving religious coverage for slavery for over 600 years. All enslaved denied their native names, new last Christian names at baptism required, raised as Catholic yet rarely buried, mass graves. Here some 200 kids can't afford to carry enslaved from the field. 2,209 enslaved infants born in St. John the Baptist perished prior to their second birthday and put into earthen holes. Occasionally at the Catholic Church here, Hydell owned 8 plantations at his height of wealth. Catholic sanction of black enslavement was not repudiated, not ended until 1992 by Pope John Paul II, who then apologized to Africa. At the Whitney, the field of angels tells all. The whip is the lash of God. Only those who endured can explain.
Whoa.
Okay, I want to lighten this up a little bit. So, another treat of the neighborhood is seeing these dapper brothers, cool daddies. You know when you see them. So this is dedicated to them. Black dudes with alligator shoes. Black dudes with alligator shoes move in slow motion. Cool invented for them. They don't walk, they glide. Don't speak, head tips, one eye slants. A state, a nod, a wink with any luck. Not a flashback of the 1950s or 60s, one, a PK, a comp professor, an HBCU youngblood, aiming uplift at young minds. This descendant of dapper brothers who brought stingy brims and tailored suits on Rampart Street when it was lined in black outfitters. The Delarose brothers, fine shoemakers. They might have washed dishes or trucks or trains by day, but nights and church days, dapper was their name. Clean as the Board of Health, their game, gentlemen. Black dudes with alligator shoes, move in slow motion. Cool invented for them. They don't walk, they glide. Don't speak, heads tip a nod, eyes slant. Cool, a state of mind. Bunch of praise songs, but I'm going to skip those because they are kind of long. And we've been here a minute. I'm going to. One of the reasons I stand here is because of my big sister. And every book I've written, there's a praise song to her. She made me go to college. Didn't want to do it. Of course, I wanted to be a medal swimmer in the Olympics, but it was Jim Crow. They wouldn't let me try out. That broke my heart. And then I wanted to be a designer, clothes designer, because I could sew. My mother and all the women in the neighborhood sewed Haskell Brothers tropical seersucker suits, so I came up sewing. Matter of fact, I sewed my way through my undergraduate school. I sewed for big guys, but my sister made me go to college. So I thank her every day for my life, for her love and support. And this is 2 praise songs for my sister too. Praise song for Barbara Ann. Sometimes I call her Black American Princess. She the beautiful, beating out Shirley Temple smiles at 5. Attending Martinez Creole preschool, speaking French, Spanish, skipping 1st grade. But she recalls the turn when Daddy returned from World War II, a sergeant, cook, poet, hungry to hug his first girl. Sis asked Daddy, "Who are you?" Threw her bread down on the gravel street in protest, and Daddy, fresh from seeing French kids eating rodents and begging for food, demanded she pick up the bread and eat it. Her Aries horns rearing, she stood in her pride until Daddy slapped her straight, "Don't waste food." Because Mother sewed tropical seersucker suits by day, it was Sis who walked me through girlhood, assuring I could keep swimming even when Jim Crow refused me Olympic tryouts. Stuck with me as her audience, She doo-wopped with other 7th Ward Creole girls, danced at home under blue light backyard parties to Etta James, Fat Domino, or Bobby Blue Bland's slow drags with handsome Creole boys of every hue and height. Under mother's watchful eyes. Sis carved Sputniks out of halved oranges and toothpicks with cheese perfectly cubed cut at the ends. Daddy strung lights from fences for their fun after dark. In her prom photo, Sis is pretty as a young Dorothy Dandridge or Lena Horne. Daddy, afraid for her beauty, still laid a heavy hand on her freedom. Summers to Smokey Robinson songs, we Negro kids swam in water shows like Esther Williams. Sis and I always centered in a heart made of the best swimmers in Hardin Park. Each year with glued sequins on our swim caps to grand applause from crowds around the city pool. She the beauty, me the athlete and book kid. Both of us inhale good books. Brain food for the senses and spirit. Well, one day she announced she was leaving, marrying a tall drink of Hurricane, handsome too. Cut his 1955 Chevy into a sports car called Lizzie with painted black footprints the size of my fingertips on the side mirror. Out of Daddy's house for the West Coast, left one jail for another. Once Mother died and Daddy drowned his grief in booze, broads, drunken parties with strange men there for the Jack Daniels. One peering into my bedroom once Daddy's face fell flat into the coupon dinner I left for him. Had to go. Landed on my sister's doorstep with one bag and a new coat I bought with savings from lifeguarding and selling pleat and tuck pillows, hand sewn on Mother's Singer sewing machine. Stuck between scared and the next day, I cleaned, cooked their dinners, cared for my nephew Sean, washed and ironed their clothes, being useful and avoiding a future. My sister set me up for interviews with Larry Gossett, the activist son of her postal co-worker friend, Miss Johnny. Made me go to college. So I went, kicking and screaming. Then took to it like a crawfish hugging river stilt. By grace, I did more. Through 4 degrees, her hubby chided, Negro, when you gonna get a real job? Along the way, I sewed for big guys, Garfield Hurd, Bigfoot's Bob Lanier, Bob McAdoo, Globetrotters, boy bands. And Sis sent me love in boxes of beans, peas, stockings, priceless presents. She said, go ahead, you do what I couldn't, study. Once a PhD, brother-in-law tempered by fighting to stay in unions to earn rightful pay for his journeyman sheet metal skills, and me working for the Research One, he shook his head. I did all right. He admitted out loud. My sister outlives the love of her life, survives cancer for the 2nd time in over 30 years, has 2 new knees that holler in airport security checks, a grown son, sweet friends, and we jazz fest each year in Crescent City. These days, I call her Execusis, who fundraises for the Central District Senior Center on a hill overlooking Lake Washington. She chairs their board of directors, escorts her elders to St. Therese Catholic Church for Sunday Mass, rides ferries in Puget Sound with her multicultural book club of ladies, all sisters. Today, when the neighborhood owls call morning to light, before the hum of interstate traffic rises, I have a dark cherry and soy smoothie, put on the decaf with chicory, of course, plan to play something smooth by Gregory Porter, like Painted on Canvas, one of our faves. And I give thanks for sister love in my life. I'm going to read this one in her honor, because today's her day. She's at the, they play whist, big whist all day. But they bring food, and it's a big party. And I'm just so proud of her. And this one I had the honor of publishing. It appeared in Home a Day last September. It's real fun. God was willing, sis, I'm home. Took 16 moves in 14 and a half years and 12 different addresses. I'm home. Rebuilt our little shotgun house Daddy bought for $2,000 on the GI Bill post-World War II in the 7th Ward. It was wide enough to love 2 families at a time, double, long and wide like a bulldog, stocky with a sturdy gait, seemingly indestructible, with its turn-of-the-century plaster and lath between walls held by red brick fireplaces, anchors for kin to hold on to, steady, outlasting many storms from Betsy to Camille, hurricanes that came and went like occasional visitors who overstay their welcome. Here, we saved every book we ever had, from old Bibles listing births, marriages, deaths, to Sherlock Holmes and the Harvard classics. 2 dictionaries, American Heritage and Webster's, plus the American People's Encyclopedia, that answered questions Daddy or Mother couldn't from newspapers, such as the Stateside, but especially the Louisiana Weekly, where Negroes had starring roles as newly married or debuted swimmers, medaled in photos with their part-time coaches who were full-time teachers, like Vic Vavasor, with their own kids too, who spent their summer, Saturdays, and after school time teaching us regulation sports, from baseball, football, swimming, to supervised play, and we were all a team, and neighbors, and grudges never lasted more than an hour or no longer than a busted lip that's gone when the swelling fades, and heals like our sunburns and summers between thunder showers we see coming blocks away. Our shotgun castle, our guardian of refuge from those Jim Crow days in our 7th Ward neighborhood, where we had all we needed for comfort and summer fun, of shaved ice or hucklebucks, and winters without cold, and no gunshots.
Yeah, that's good. Good, yeah.
Simple.
Yeah.
Signs and books, too.
Okay, cool. Questions? Questions? And I still didn't get through the whole first part. It's a lot of stuff. Any questions?
It just, you know, the pieces of the comfort magic almost to get you through the inevitable storms, you know, and it's sort of like you're not fooling yourself by appreciating and remembering the comfort. You're just preparing yourself. It's just the way life is, you know. You know, one day everything's fine, and then you're slammed with something, and then you get together and you rise again, and then there's something else that comes at you, and it's, I don't know, it feels like you're always in training.
Ha! That is L-I-F-E.
Yep.
Thank you. Yes?
How did it feel to write it out?
Some of these poems took years for me to write. And in the second part, I have a hashtag #MeToo poem that took me all my life to write. 2 pride apology poems that took decades to write in terms of reconciling feelings and ignorance. It just depends on the piece. Some pieces just come, pow! And I'm always editing, so I do ad-lib a little bit when I see at least one person who's reading along with me, but so I'm always adding something, but it's a joy to try to capture that paradise and the perils, and that's what literature does. It's our human history. And if I don't, and when I was listening to, as a young writer, those great writers, I didn't hear us here in New Orleans. I didn't hear our neighborhood, our block. And so I've been trying to add to those discussions. And I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. So I try to honor that. And it gives me joy when I feel like I've captured something that has either scratched the back of my head or haunted me or made me laugh a lot. And I just love the folk. I love the folk. Yes?
I bet there are a lot of writers in the room. And appreciate the fact that you said that your first book got rejected 25 times. So for those who may be new writers or who've been writing for a lifetime, what's your advice?
Keep doing it.
Keep doing it.
We need your voice. There are no two of you. God doesn't make mistakes. There's only one of you. Nobody kisses with your lips. Nobody has walked through your shoes. You have seen life from your point of view, and we need to know what that was, or our human history is incomplete. And that's what literature does. It fills in the blanks of the great dates of history. Well, who were we? Only you can tell us that. And rejection has nothing to do with you. It could just be that the editor has something in the back of their mind for a theme that they haven't even published or asked for. Or they want to publish their friends. Or it's just that your work didn't fit this issue. You just have to keep sending it out. And my first mentor, Dr. Colleen McElroy, who passed just this December, she had me typing up my stuff, sending it out every week, get a rejection, change the cover letter, send it to 10 more magazines, get 10 more rejections. So my book may have been rejected 25 times, but my poems? Thousands. Imagine you're a kid and you want to learn how to play baseball. What do? You got to get out there and learn. You got to learn how to catch, you have to play, and even if you don't win a game, you have to participate. So writing and sharing your work is part of that. It is, it's not penance, but it's certainly the practice. Imagine if you musicians didn't practice or didn't learn the scales. So study and write, as Ernest Gaines said, read, write. So just keep doing it. But we need all of your voices, and we need you to participate in this thing we call publishing. There are journals everywhere. UNL has journals. Dillard has journals. Xavier has journals. Tulane, Loyola. There's other journals. Get Poets and Writers and get the list of contests. Enter contests. My book won 2 contests. And you get cash money. Now there are contests where you can enter a poem and win $1,000 or $3,000. Just get in that number and try. Just send it out. Get it rejected, send it something else. And thanks to the Association of Writers and Writing Programs, AWP, or Poets and Writers, there are whole lists of opportunities. And so every week you got something else you can send out. So just do it. Just do it. But even though the dictionary says that this was the most overused word last year, be authentic. You can't fake literature. You cannot. If you're authentic and you're sincere and studied, you've got to give us something to chew on. We want some image. Please paint in words. Just use your best stuff. Just keep trying. You can only evolve and get better. I can testify from my little spiral-bound notebooks today.
Yeah, I was thinking about just how difficult it is to write poems and all these books, and yours is so filled with facts and statistics, history. I was wondering how you worked about getting the statistics and the numbers with the vernacular and the language that you use.
Working at it.
Was hard.
Yeah, there's the research.
Yeah.
Well, I'm always reading. So
Yeah.
Here I am reading articles. Oh my God, I got to put that down. I got to use this. Because most people don't know. And I want to capture it. I want to put it in a way that people who may not read those research articles will at least know. Because it's one thing to know, and you've seen it. I think before I moved into my home, rebuilt new 5 years ago, I was living on Palmer Street, and I think it was still the Times-Picayune, or there was another name for it. Anyway, And they had a double page open. When I tell you, it was thousands of names of black people who had been killed by police in the street. And it's one thing to see that, which is overwhelming, but to know that the percentage of black people is so small now, yet we're still the problem, really? Some old stuff still going on, but you've got to do what you're called for. That's what you have to do.
If I could say one more thing, when you started reading your poems, I thought, this is a book that I'm going to learn a lot from. And I don't, I mean, I know I'm going to get pleasure in other things. I'm going to learn things in this.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
That means the world.
Yeah.
Thank you. From a great poet herself.
Amen.
Thank you so much. Thank
Red beans and rice are yours.
Yeah.
I bought that book, and I was sent away from home for Katrina. I got it in the mail. I read it from cover to cover, which is not the way you read a poetry book. But I so needed that book. So needed that book. Just laid in bed and read the whole thing, because I was in the desert, Phoenix, Arizona. Good friends, you know, safe and all of that, but so missing New Orleans. And that saved my life. I'm getting that book.
God bless you. Another fine poet
Yeah.
from New Orleans.
Yeah, Valentine.
Earl Valentine. Any other questions? Yes.
It's not a question, but I just wanted to give a shout. I thoroughly enjoyed reading the book, but the singing was just.
Well, I'm blessed to be born into a musical family, and I sing in the gospel choir at my church. And because I sample lines, which you're allowed to do legally, I can't help but sing it. And that's the difference in writing and performance. So when I read, I perform.
What church?
St. Raymond, St. Leo the Great. We have a rockin' gospel mass at 10 o'clock on Sundays. Although this Sunday the men sing, but we do have a gospel concert at 3 o'clock. It's free, you can come.
Advanced Vocal Songs Choir, transfer your age.
Ah, very good. Kudos to you. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'll be happy to sign books if anybody wants to take one home.
Can I make 2 announcements?
Please.
2 announcements. Number 1, our friends at Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities have provided copies of 64 Parishes magazine, free for everyone to take home. So when you go buy a book over there, grab a magazine off the table and take it home. They're heavy. Please don't make me take them back to my house. Box weigh 27 pounds. Help me out.
Wow.
And second is on March 16th. Can we say this in public now?
Yes.
Yes. March 16th at the New Orleans Book Festival at Tulane, I will be interviewing Mona Lisa along with Khadijah Queen and Kay Abura about books that are nothing alike. So it should be really fun to have these books in conversation. Y'all come out March 16th at 10 a.m.
Great, thank you. Let's give Megan another